welcome. This is Global Connections, part of the ThinkTech Hawaii series, and I'm delighted to welcome some great guests today for a conversation. We've got Ferid M-Rad, and who comes to us from Austria, and we have Raumanu Parmilvan, and both of them are very special. They're not just international students studying here in Hawaii, they are Fulbrighters, and what that means is something we're going to unravel. They are part of a very prestigious program that's been in place for many years now, many decades, the Fulbright Program. It is the flagship international exchange program sponsored by our U.S. government, and we work together with countries throughout the world to exchange scholars, and so we'll learn more about that, but in particular, what brings them here all the way from different parts of the world. Ferid comes to us from Austria in Central Europe, and Raumanu comes from Fiji in the Pacific Islands. So on that, we're going to continue as we do here in Global Connections, bringing the world to Hawaii, but also helping Hawaii understand what goes on around the world. So let me just tell both of you, I'm just delighted to welcome you both to the show and look forward to this conversation. And maybe just to get things started, as we'll want to learn more about your background, tell us briefly what you're doing here, but also what you do back home. So Ferid?
Actually, first of all, my name is not a typical Austrian name. That's why I first talk about my family background.
Yes.
I grew up in a multicultural family. My father is actually from North Africa, from Tunisia. My mother is typical Austrian, and the love brings all the cultures together. So that's why my name is actually Ferid Ben-Rad. And I previously graduated from the University of Applied Science in St. Polten. I did my bachelor's degree in media management.
Okay.
And right now I'm actually studying here at HPU, doing my master's in communication, and at the same time I'm doing my second master's degree at the University of Applied Science in St. Polten. So I'm studying there right now, writing my master thesis, and right here I'm studying communication.
Right.
And this is a really hard working experience for me right now, but I really love it, and I think I'm gonna talk about later about my first 2-month experiences here at HPU.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And again, gosh, it sounds like during the night you do this, and then the day that. But I think it reflects so much of the world that we live in now, that you've got several things you're juggling at the same time, and very excited to learn about this, and as well as you describe your own heritage, part of this mixed culture heritage that we see everywhere. And I think it speaks to the global connections of the world. We're in a world that is increasingly becoming more either flat or more just interconnected. So Raumanu, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, like Ferid, I come from a multicultural background. My dad is of Indian descent, straight from Gujarat in India, and my mom is Polynesian Fijian. We are called like Rutumans in Fiji, and I guess just like him, love brought it together. And back at home, I did my undergrad at the University of the South Pacific. I have an undergrad degree in law, and then I applied for Fulbright. When I was working, I didn't really think it would work out, but here I am.
Some things lead to another.
Yes.
And in your case, you're doing the master's degree in communication here at Hawaii Pacific University. And your degree?
I'm doing the master's in military diplomacy and military studies.
Excellent. Diplomacy and military studies. So these are very different areas, and we'll certainly speak a little bit more about that. But of course, what connects both of you and what we want to also understand is this Fulbright. This is, of course, a name that refers to a specific man. J. William Fulbright is the person who helped to establish this program. We now call it the Fulbright Program, and it really is a comprehensive set of programs. As the example of the two of you, it helps to support the exchange of scholars and students, and so you are graduate students that are coming here supported by this program and helping to increase understanding between your countries, Austria, Fiji, and the United States. And maybe just to begin briefly, I mean, how did you come to learn about the opportunity itself? You had been studying in Austria. Where were you? Like one day, did somebody tell you about it, or did you find it on your own?
From my point of view, it was a really funny experience because I was actually working at a fair. I was volunteering for AIFS. That's an organization which brings young adults to do a semester abroad or a work experience abroad, something like that. And I was telling them about my experiences, how important they are and everything else. And there was another part at the fair, which was a HPU welcome stand or something like that.
A little booth with information.
Yeah, a little booth with information, and it was really funny because Anja Frommold was there. Anja Frommold is the international advisor for students here at HBU, and she told me everything about HBU, how good the programs are, how good the professors are, what the culture is about here, and I was falling in love with HBU. So I kept that in my mind, and afterwards I was reading online about all different kind of scholarships and everything else, and then I found out about the Fulbright program, and I was really into it. I was reading a lot of reviews, a lot of previous experiences from Fulbright alumnus, and afterwards Of course, I had a little bit of fear about like applying for such a great and big program, because it is not just about good grades. The Fulbright program is about having a great working experience,
outlook on life,
an outlook like. What are you doing right now? What are you doing besides your studies? What hobbies do you have? What kind of clubs did you join or anything else? Everything. This is a whole package, the Fulbright program. And a lot of students are not applying for Fulbright scholarship because they think that they don't have enough good grades to apply for this Fulbright scholarship.
But it's more than grades.
But it's
really
more.
The well-rounded.
The Fulbright program is more about like bringing cultures together, like the mutual understanding from my country, Austria, and the United States.
Yes.
So I'm actually here not just to finish my studies. I'm actually here like to exchange cultures. What is the difference from the American culture to my culture, and what can I bring into the American, and what can I gain from the American people to bring in my country. So
excellent. No, very well put. And so you are in effect cultural ambassadors, and then that's an important part of what this program is designed to do. It's a part of our cultural diplomacy, and for each of your countries as well, where you're, like you described it, you're not just sending students to learn something, but to really help be an ambassador for your culture, your world, so that we can understand more about it, and vice versa, that you come and your immersion here is not just to take classes, but to really gain a deeper understanding, and that you will have the ability to continue sharing that. And tell us about your experience, Raumanu. How did you come to learn about Fulbright?
Well, in Fiji, the Fulbright program covers the whole of the Pacific, so it's really one scholarship with a pool of about 13 different island countries.
Okay.
So how I learned of it was a good friend of mine. He sent me an email and he said that he couldn't apply because of family issues, and he said that he thought of me. So I applied in February, and then I kind of forgot about it because, I mean, you read about the scholarships and you try, and you're not really sure about what the outcome will be. So I applied, and then in July, someone from the embassy called, and I was wondering what she was calling about because I had forgotten what it was, but then it worked out.
They were interested in
So from a pool of 60, they brought it down to 10, and then lucky enough,
you were selected as one of them. And so again, it works in a way where, gosh, I don't know the exact number, but 170, 180 countries, most of the world is involved in this. And just as some of the background that I know you are familiar with, because you've had an opportunity to get some both briefings and just understand what it is to be a Fulbrighter. This was a program that really began at the early period after World War II. The young senator at that time, J. William Fulbright from the state of Arkansas, he came out with a relatively simple idea, although it's emerged as a very powerful one. How can we avoid, tensions, conflicts, and move beyond the world in which we find ourselves? And by the mid 20th century, we'd seen a lot of devastation in the world wars, and through promotion of scholarly exchange, faculty and students, we would try to find better ways for people to understand. And so that has now been, again, for decades, since the late 40s and until the present. We have a large pool of alumni and many who've gone on to very important, prestigious opportunities. But like you described very well, it's really a bigger picture than just do some studies. I mean, many students do exchange, and that's valuable in its own right, but the Fulbright carries an additional prestige because you have to have a sense of its purpose, and the mission is to really go beyond just that, right? To really help us understand. And maybe if you could describe a little bit, once you were selected and then began to firm up your plans, before you arrive in your host institution here in Hawaii, you or first connected with a group of other Fulbrighters, and basically through a type of a workshop and orientation.
Yes.
So where was yours, Manu?
Mine was at Drexel University in Philadelphia,
okay.
and I was there for a total of 4 weeks.
So about 1 month.
1 month,
Mm-hmm.
and I was a part of 30 students.
Okay.
So basically the goal was to integrate those who weren't really good at English speaking and writing, and the cultural aspect, which we found really interesting because we got to go to have dinners with families, and we got to meet. They had this International Visitors Council, which was great. We got to meet professional people and really get used to talking and interacting.
Yeah, and there were other Fulbrighters like yourself from all over the world, different places?
Yes, we had lots from Latin America. We had Peru, Paraguay, all those Latin American countries, and then we had I have friends from Chad, friends from the Ivory Coast, friends from the Middle East, Afghanistan.
So like a United Nations in
Yes,
Philadelphia.
it was a mini United
And of course, what better way to prepare you for Hawaii than Philadelphia? Very important to understand the heart of our sort of Independence Hall and part of our culture.
It was good. The
Absolutely.
historical
Yes.
background gave us like a real introduction to how America came.
Yeah, the founding fathers, met there, and this is an important city in our history. But more important than that, it's of course coming together, bringing others like yourself who are new arrivals coming to the U.S. And in general, Fulbright tends to look for people who have not had a lot of experience in the U.S. If you've lived here 10 years, you wouldn't be able to come under this program. And so they're, effectively helping you. And then, as you describe, I mean, people coming from places like Africa, Latin America, it's also a quick crash course on helping, with some of the norms and maybe ways that we have in our university system, for example,
Yes.
understanding the system, which can be very different from many other places. What about yourself, Ferid? Where was yours?
I had the pleasure to attend the Fulbright Gateway orientation in Nashville, Tennessee, at the Vanderbilt University, which was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had because there were like 55 Fulbrighters from 35 different countries, and this was a culture shock at first because I think 90% of all had never been to the United States before. I just was here. I've been to America just on vacation, and that was really one of the greatest experiences because in Nashville isn't like every city here in the United States because it's actually the music city, and the people there were wearing cowboy boots, cowboy hats, and everything. And the program there was really well. Were organized. We had like a lot of lectures from really important professors there at the Vanderbilt University, and we had a lot of events going on, like going line dancing, for example, at one of the best saloon there in Nashville, and we learned a lot about different cultures, and we were getting prepared for the American culture. How are the studies here? How are the academical writing parts? How important is academical writing here? And it was one of the best experiences I've ever.
Yeah, and so again, this is a program that's been doing this for so many years. So they figured out what are the needs, what are the sort of the best ways to prepare you for this next step. And then after this period, you spent with this. What did you describe it? It was like a welcome or orientation.
Gateway orientation. Yeah.
So this is before you end up in your place, you've come together with this other group of people from all over the world, Nashville, Tennessee, Philadelphia, again, and they do these in different parts of the country.
Yes.
And it's just an opportunity to give you that first welcome into the country, orientation, preparation, and then, boom, they send you off. And in your case, Raumanu, you go from Fiji, Philadelphia, and then back to the middle of the Pacific. Seems a little bit odd. And so yours was in some ways like literally a gateway, halfway here in some ways. And you find yourself suddenly landing out here in Hawaii. We are certainly part of the U.S., and yet we are very distinct in our own way. And I'm just curious, as you had opportunities, I mean, you described how you came to learn about Hawaii. You've met, one of our international recruiters, Anya Fromelt, who does a lot of this for us and helps bring international students here. How about yourself? How did you connect with Hawaii? What was it that?
Well, firstly, it was like I had to search for a specific program that I thought I'd be interested in. So generally what Fulbright gave me was the ability to search for something to do with international relations.
Okay.
So as I was looking through school programs, I found out that Hawaii Pacific University offered diplomacy and military studies. So I immediately contacted Rumi Yoshida, and she was so helpful. She gave me all the information that I needed. And basically that was how I got
your
here.
door. But so in your own way, looking for options. Well, this is very exciting. We're going to continue in just a moment. I want to take a short break right now, and we'll be returning. We're joined here by Ferid, who comes from Austria, and Raumanu from Fiji. And these are two young Fulbright graduate students. They've come from far away to join us here in Hawaii and to help us understand better their own world, their own culture, and of course the other side. They will return and after doing some studies here, be able to bring a little piece of American culture and society back home. We'll be back in just a moment after the break, so stay tuned.
Aloha, I'm Jay Fidel, founder of ThinkTech Hawaii. We are a digital media nonprofit that covers things that matter to tech, energy, diversification, globalism, and progress for our state, the state of Hawaii. We broadcast on community television and on Oceanic Cable Channel 16. We also stream our shows and interviews live on the internet as both radio and video, and of course we post them here on YouTube. We collaborate with the Hawaii Venture Capital Association to present monthly luncheon programs on subjects of interest to the business community, and we write for the Honolulu Star Advertiser. ThinkTech works hard to raise public awareness in Hawaii. Check out our website, thinktechhawaii.com, and come to our YouTube channel, ThinkTech Hawaii. We hope you support our mission and that you like our work. I'm Jay Fidel. Mahalo.
And welcome. We're back. We're live and we're ThinkTech. This is Global Connections. I'm your host, Carlos Juarez, and delighted to be joined today by two young, up-and-coming leaders who've joined us here in Hawaii. They're part of the Fulbright Program that brings them here to help basically support their studies and connect them to us. We're joined by Ferid Ben M-Rad, and Ferid comes from Austria, and we're joined by Raumanu Parmilvan, and Raumanu comes from Fiji. And as we continue our conversation, I'm maybe want to press you a little bit more about your own home country. You've told us a little bit about your studies, but more specifically, Ferid, you come from Austria, which is a country with a rich cultural heritage, right in the heart of Europe, and yet we know it, of course. Vienna, the capital city, quite beautiful. I myself get to travel quite often to the far west side, which is Innsbruck, up in the Alps.
Beautiful.
But tell me about your own home. What part of the country do you live in, and what is it like there?
I'm actually living in Lower Austria. The city where I'm living is called St. Pölten. This is pretty close to Vienna. It's like 25 minutes by train. My city is a small city. Population there is about 170,000 people. I love to live there because it's really small, and I'm mostly spending my free time and the time with my friends in Vienna. So I'll be moving to Vienna like 4 till 5 times a week to stay there, to study there, because at the Vienna Library, this is a beautiful library, a big library. Vienna University is one of the greatest, one of the most beautiful universities in Europe. Definitely a visit. Definitely you have to visit the university. And my city is beautiful because we have a lot of lakes. We don't have the biggest mountains there because the mountains are actually on the other side, like more Salzburg, Innsbruck, all that stuff. And I love living there because my parents raised me there. My parents are living there. My brother is living there, and family was always a big part of my life, and it will always be a good part of my life.
I think what fascinates me about many parts of Europe, and I think yours is clearly one of these, where on one hand you're very well connected to the big city, Vienna, all the resources and the rich, everything from the institutions like the university, but everything else, and yet you also have this deep connection to your smaller town, the community that you come from. And again, very typical of a lot of you keep both of those. You need that small community that you know.
Definitely.
But a half an hour away, you can be in the big city, right?
Right.
Quite fascinating, because I mean, all too often in many places, you're either stuck in the big city or you live out in the country. You don't have both, but
Definitely. And the best part about Vienna is that you can visit other countries like in a few hours.
Yeah,
like
very
you
short
can go
connections
to
everywhere.
Czech Republic in about 45 minutes, to Slovakia in an hour, to Hungary especially, or to Italy in a few hours, to Germany. Everything is pretty close,
yeah.
and Vienna is a great starting point.
That's right. No, absolutely. You're in many ways a gateway to all of that region, and it's a region of a lot of variation, tremendous change, very exciting. Tell us, Raumanu, about your own. I mean, you come from Fiji. It's a smaller island itself, let's say,
Yes.
but what is life like there? And what about you come from the main capital city?
No, I
No?
don't.
Okay.
I was born there,
Okay.
but I was raised in the western side of Fiji.
Okay.
I'm from a small city called Lautoka, and the only reason why we call the city is because of population of 25,000.
Oh, so you have a stoplight
Stop.
somehow. Very well.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Great.
Yes. And like I said, we're from Lautoka. We're always known as the Burning West because it's the hotter side of Fiji.
Oh, okay.
The capital,
It's on fire.
the capital is located in the eastern side of Fiji. So basically, Fiji is made up of two main islands with about 300 small islands. Not all of them are inhabited.
Yeah, yeah. And it is a mixed heritage population.
Oh,
That's
yes.
something people are not always aware of. You have, of course, the more indigenous Polynesian that you mentioned comes from part of your side, but another substantial population that is essentially immigrants from India.
Yes, immigrants from India and of course our indigenous Fijians called the Itauke.
Okay.
So basically the three are the main races in Fiji.
Excellent. And so, as an island nation, I mean, you're part of this, sort of Pacific world, and share a lot of common, values and history and heritage from places throughout the region, right? And what I'm curious to learn maybe here is you've come from this far away, and we know, of course. We take pride in our heritage of where we come from, what we do, and yet when you connect with people from all over the world, you also find at times that people share a lot of similar preferences or values. And I'm curious, from your reflections, again, meeting with this large group of the Fulbrighters that you connected with at the beginning, and even now as you continue, now, I mean, do you see a lot of commonalities in people, or do you remind yourself that, gosh, what you have is distinct and special? What do you say to that?
Actually, I experienced both of that things because some cultures I've never thought that they're really close to each other. For example, in Nashville, Tennessee, there was a guy, Fulbrighter from Argentina, and I'm from Austria, and we were talking about food, good food, and then we were talking about going skiing and about the mountains. And of course, Argentina is not Austria, but the beautiful nature in Argentina is pretty much like the same in Austria, and they can go skiing there, and we can go skiing there, and he actually was never in Europe before, so he came from the South America, like from Argentina, and I come from the middle of Europe actually, and he didn't know that you can go skiing there actually. So it was a really great experience to talk about like something where like what is similar from his country and from my country.
That's right.
And the food, exactly, like they have
A lot of meat.
a lot of meat, a lot of good meat,
Yes.
and we have a lot of good meat as well.
Yeah.
So this is really,
That's right.
that was one of the things which were similar.
Yeah, no,
For
it's
example.
very true. And a country like Argentina has a very interesting story. Many European immigrants that founded it, Spanish, but Italian, even other German and Scandinavians that today make up and actually in the last 20 years, a lot of Eastern Europeans that have settled there. It's a large immigrant population, but they bring their culture. Of course, they become Argentinians, so they have their own twist on it. But very fascinating how you found those common links, right?
Yeah.
And what about yourself, Raumanu? I mean, do you see, again, just your reflection on the mixture of cultures that you've been able to connect with here?
I guess from growing up in Fiji, you're just so used to the different cultures surrounding you. So you'll always find something to identify with. And like, even meeting Ferid, I mean, we both share the same family values, the same kind of family background. involved with so many different cultures. So everything from food to the latest music, it was quite an experience.
I mean, it is amazing that the world that that we're now all a part of. I mean, the technologies and the spread of culture, popular culture on so many levels, helps to really bring those links across, right? And again, and actually, you described it in Fiji, what is clearly a multicultural society, no doubt, and very open to these differences. I mean, like every place, you've got some tensions here and there, no doubt. Austria, on some level, a fairly homogeneous culture because it's primarily Germanic, and yet, particularly Vienna, very large population of immigrants from many places. And again, like anytime you have that, there's both the excitement, the richness, and parts of Vienna where I've been, where you've got these great marketplaces and all of that bustling. But again, as we also know, there are times where you often have reaction or negative responses, particularly when there's either economic difficulties or the whole question of immigrants in Europe is a very sensitive, contentious issue. And Austria has been a place where there has been a history at times of a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment.
Still happening now.
Yeah, and so how you balance that, and on one hand, we are clearly in a world in which more and more people are connected, and once you do that, it breaks down those barriers. You realize, that those differences are something that you can instead celebrate or appreciate.
Right.
Where you find some of these harder views tend to be those that are, either losing out, or more often they're people who don't have interaction on a personal level with other cultures. They live in a very closed world, and yet that's the challenge that we live in, right? How do you break through those barriers? Now, I wonder if you'd like to just move this a little further in terms of just your own impressions. You've now been here for a couple of months in our state of Hawaii, and added the other initial places that you were in Nashville and in Philadelphia. Give us a quick snapshot of what are some of your impressions. I mean, you came, before you came, you had some ideas, some stereotypes, some images. You've seen a lot of movies, television. You had a little vacation time, but now that you've kind of become an American resident, you've been here getting more Americanized. Tell us a little bit about your impressions, any surprises, any, I don't know, interesting things you could share? Impressions?
Wow, Hawaii is very beautiful. Sometimes I feel like I'm back at home.
Yeah. So it shares some of the island kind of
spirit.
Yeah. Okay.
But because Fiji is so small, I walk around and I see these big buildings, and I'm still like inside. I'm still the island girl who's trying to find her way.
And this is, many people are surprised we're so urbanized and densely populated.
Very.
It's a major city. Now, it doesn't take long to get outside of that, and there's a very rural part, but certainly the city of Honolulu is quite dense.
Yes, and then when you read the stories about like the hokulea, the Hawaiian waka, to me that's really powerful, because back at home we have the same sort of values. We have a waka, and there's respect between the land and the sea, so I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And so people who come from this part of the world have that deep ingrained in their culture that the land is something that you have to value in a very certain way. Tell us any reflections and
It is to describe my first 2 months here. I would describe with one word. It's awesome because not just the local people here, which gave me a deep understanding about the culture here. The HPU's international students. Only the students are a big part of my previous experience here, because the students here are from different countries, like the same it was at the Gateway Orientation. So actually at my program there are 25 students from, I think, 13 countries, and this is really interesting, like to be in an international community. And what do you have to say about Hawaii? I mean, Hawaii is beautiful, obviously, and you can do so many things besides your studies here. Like you can do every different kind of sport here, activity. You can experience all the beautiful hidden places, for example, hidden beaches and everything else. And I really love to study here because it keeps my mind open. Like I'm more focused than in Europe to study here, because I have the beach. I have. We don't have beaches in Austria because we don't have the sea there.
Yeah, yeah.
So we only have like small lakes, which are beautiful, but it's a totally different thing.
No, interesting. And you know, I think you put it well, and I'm wondering, I mean, from your impressions and your experience so far, no surprises, nothing that you didn't expect, or you kind of, you know, just confirming what you anticipated?
My surprise was a little embarrassing. I was surprised that cheese could come out of a can. It's not really the best kind of thing, but
this is this kind that you kind of spray. Well, that's probably not considered real cheese in the world of Austria.
Yes.
Processed cheese, we call it. And, that is a little strange. You know, and food is obviously a very important thing, as you described earlier, your own culture, and any place we go. I mean, food is not just something you do to eat, which it is, but it reflects what matters to you, and it's a window into people's culture. And you know, tell us a little bit about, like, you know, usually what happens when you've been away, you begin to miss those things that you can't find. And Ferid, if you had to say, I mean, what are the 2 or 3 things that, gosh, you wish you had, or you can't wait to get once you get back?
I definitely, the most important thing what I'm missing here is good fresh baked bread.
Yes.
Because you don't get it here. I mean you get kind of things which are similar to fresh bread,
Not
but
quite, yeah.
but it tastes not as good as real Austrian bread. And I really miss that.
Yes,
and for example, another Austrian thing, especially Austrian thing which I'm missing, is like going to the supermarket and order fresh bread with meat or something like that. You don't get it here. I mean, you have all the fast food restaurants where you get the burgers, but a burger related to a real good bread with meat or something like that is nothing. But you have to experience that on your own when you visit once Austria.
Yeah, excellent. And what about for you? I mean, you've got some similarities, but clearly there must be some things that you miss from home.
I love fish.
Yeah.
I've found some really good fish here,
Excellent.
but it's really expensive. So
Yeah.
kind of missing that out, and just
Yes.
the home sort of like vegetables.
Yes. So, I mean, these are the things that, again, they become important for you. And from your experience, again, maybe just to continue the food part, any things that you've tried that are different now? And of course, in Hawaii, we have just a diversity of foods from particularly Asia and many other parts of the world. But anything that you've enjoyed most? Something new?
Actually, first of all, I really love experiencing new food culture, especially here in Hawaii, because there are a lot of food cultures. And of course, I tried the Hawaiian culture as well. And I was actually shocked because they're eating in the morning rice to everything. Like rice is. They're starting with rice and then put like eggs on it and bacon or something like that. And I was kind of shocked because we don't eat rice in the morning. So in Austria,
Yes.
I mean, I can't. No, that's not. That's really. I can't get used to that.
Yes.
So
And yet
that's
again,
it.
but particularly with the Asian culture, I mean, rice is so fundamental, and it is. It's not just for, you know, a certain meal. It's, you know, prepared throughout, and there's always got to be some.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. Now, well, let me turn now briefly. I want to talk about, again, maybe as students yourselves, you're focusing on, you know, your areas of interest and expertise in your particular programs. But beyond that, you're also part of a generation now where we live in a world of, gosh, this global interconnectedness, and it demands of us different skills, different competencies. And I'd like to maybe ask if you could think about, you know, what do you think are some of the type of skills that you need to have to function in our world today, whether they're technical or people skills, or you know, how to do things, or even values for that matter. I mean, but because it's a very different world today from what your parents and your grandparents did, and you know, probably the most obvious is that we are more mobile, we're more connected, we're more impacted by what happens in other places, right? But anything you could share about, again, what are the skills that you think you've come to realize are most important?
I think it's not just about skills. I think more you have to think about what do you love, because if you work in a company, every day you go to the job, you're working there. I think you spend the most time of your life in that in the company, and if you don't like a job, you're doing something wrong in your life. So from my perspective, it took me like 10 years to figure out exactly where I want to be in about 5 years ahead, something like that.
So something you have a passion for, something you're enthusiastic about, and then everything else will follow somehow.
And you always have to challenge yourself, like set your goals higher. And if you don't do that, you will stuck at any time. So
that's a very good point. That I think again the idea of sticking to something, but then also setting that goal, what you want to do, and reach for something, because otherwise things don't just come to you. You have to be assertive and have that confidence. Well, we're going to take a break in a moment. I want to come back and continue this conversation about what are the kind of skills, what are the kind of, I guess, values, what are the things, the lessons that we can learn. And we'll take a short break right now. We'll come back to finish our conversation here. We're joined by Ferid, who comes to us from Austria, and Raumanu from Fiji, and both of them are Fulbright graduate students here studying in Hawaii. I'll be back in just a moment, so stay tuned.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Hori for ThinkTech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Hori. Mahalo.
And we're back, we're live, and we're Global Connections, part of the ThinkTech series here. And we're, of course, coming to you live from Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu, and delighted to be joined today by two young leaders who are, I think just reflecting the exciting world that we're living in. They've come from very far corners of the world, connecting here in the middle of the Pacific, and yet I'm quite confident in saying that, the two of you are here today, and yet very likely to remain lifelong friends, connected no matter where you end up. This is the world that we're in, and of course this is not the world of our parents, our grandparents. I mean, it's changing dramatically, and I want to get back to this question of, what are the kind of skills, what are the kind of, competencies or things that are needed to survive, to prosper, to, make the best of this world. Tell us a little bit, anything you can share.
For me, it was two things. Firstly, you need to have good support. I mean, in whatever you want to do in life, you need to have good support from family, from people you love, and from those few people that encourage you to take that extra mile in studying or in your job. And the second thing was for the individual to be willing to step out of your comfort zone.
Very good.
And just to adapt. The world is not constant. Problems will always be there, but you have to learn to adapt to the different situations. And I think that's very, very important, especially for people from my culture who come from like very, very small countries and then come to somewhere like this and they're
quite
overwhelmed.
a shock. Yes, no. And it's not easy. You can talk and try to tell somebody that. In some ways, you have to experience it. You need
For
a life
yourself,
experience to be put in that position where you're a little bit out of that comfort zone. And indeed, that's one of the critical things that you learn when you travel. When you go someplace new, it's different, and how do you deal with that? And I wonder if you can maybe share any thoughts. Do you have any strategies? Are there things that you do, let's say, when you're traveling to a new place? Do you try to do a little background information? Do you talk to people?
Oh, yes.
Definitely.
Anything that's worked for you or that's helped you more than other?
Before you go somewhere, know like the basics
Yes.
of like what it's like there, the weather, the people, what's around you. And then another thing is, don't just continuously talk to yourself and trust your instincts. Because if something doesn't make you comfortable, then it's either the situation or it's something, maybe you have a preconceived idea.
And you need to walk yourself through that in your own way.
Just constantly talk to yourself.
Yes, interesting. And anything you can
Yeah,
add?
actually I can add to that I am always well prepared when I travel to another country, to another city, and because sometimes you have to know how the local people respond to different kind of things, because you have to understand that this, for example, Hawaii, that this island means a lot to the local people, and you have to be respectful in every kind of different situation. Like going to the beach, you have to respect their area sometimes, and there are a lot of different kind of things which you have to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
From my point of view, because I meet a lot of people, especially tourists, who are coming here and they don't really care about their culture because they are on vacation. But I would think that it's better to be prepared instead of doing whatever you want to do.
No, and the way you describe maybe that if you will, the stereotype or somebody that doesn't seem to care, that's more likely to set you up for frustrations, difficulties, anger, you know, and it is the need to kind of be, you know, we could say open-minded, or at least, you know, think a little bit, keep your radar on, and learn before you know, say something, you know, be a listener. Absolutely, and be respectful of you know, what's important to other people, even if it may not be so obvious to you, right?
Right.
Because you never know who you're talking to.
Yes, and that's, I mean, that's, I think that last point is so critical. You don't always realize. I'm always fascinated here in Hawaii. We have, of course, people from all over, but, you know, people may not realize that, you know, this or that person actually speaks Korean, and maybe they're not Korean, or they speak Chinese or Spanish, whatever it might be. You want to be careful. Because they may understand what you're saying. The other is, I think you've also described in many ways very basic things: adaptability and flexibility. You know, you've got to be able to kind of roll with it. Things aren't going to always work out. This is true if you're traveling or working, and it's also true, I would guess, you know, the environments we are in now, increasingly we're going to be working with people from different places. You know, the days where you just married to the factory and that was it, very few places. Today you have to be able to work with other people, and what does that mean? Well, people are going to see the world differently. They're going to interpret it differently, and so I'm just, you know, glad to hear, you know, what you're learning are life lessons that, you know, I guess you have to have that experience getting out there, right? And maybe just to finish this thought, you know, I'm describing like strategies. I mean, if you had to, as you've done already, describe to other people, you know, what are the things that you can do to improve that? Because I'm sure you've met some people who have made sort of mistakes, or, you know, cultural whatever we call them, you know, or it could even be not just a person, it could be a company, or I don't know, some strategy, and, you know, you wish you could give advice to some people, and anything that you might say beyond what we've just talked about.
Maybe be the listener first.
Learn to be a good listener.
Learn to be a good listener first, because you learn a lot from just observing and listening to people, and then, you know, like, not being judgmental or anything. Because you have to come with an open mind. You have to be at peace with yourself too, because you don't have to necessarily prove everything all the time.
And I guess, you know, I'm thinking back to this comment you described about getting out of your comfort zone. In some ways, you have to push yourself to test that. And the same you described, like foods, you're very open about that, but that's not always easy. There are times where you could be in a situation where it's a very awkward or uncomfortable, and what do you do? And you know, you have to find ways. This is, again, the cultural, I guess, if you will, maps. You know, how do you understand what people, you know, do or see, and doing a little homework. And today, you know, we live in a world where some of it you can gain from just talking to other people. Some of it you can gain from, you know, simple Google search about a different culture. But ultimately, a lot of it we learn by doing, by just going to a place and seeing. Right? Very fascinating. And you know, this is critical because both of you, as part of this Fulbright program, you are, again, cultural ambassadors. You're both, you know, absorbing the cultures that you're going to continue to, you know, reflect on as you continue in your careers, and you bring to us as well a sensitivity and understanding that's critical. And so I'm really grateful for, you know, your ability to share with us some of your ideas about this. I wonder, maybe as we finish toward the end of our program now, I mean, some other final reflections that you might have, thinking carefully about what you will take away from this experience. I mean, you're continuing and you'll be here for some time with your studies, but how do you see this impacting your own future careers, your own, I don't know, your next steps after you continue from here?
From my point of view, it is the biggest step I've ever taken here, to come here to that place, to have the opportunity to be here, because I already met so many important people, students, especially professors here at the university, which gave me a lot of informations and which are helping me a lot to achieve my future goals. I don't want to talk about my goals right now, but I I've met so many people, so many connections, new connections. I mean, networking nowadays is the most important part ever. And right now I have really good friends. So I connected to a lot of people here, which are helping me from a future goal.
Excellent.
So
very well put. And again, the network and building those links. Anything, Manu, that you could close with?
Apart from a very nice degree, perhaps friendships and the positive things. Like I've never been able at home. The learning environment is so different. So here I've received so much encouragement and one-on-one with my different professors, and it's been wonderful. Like I'm reassured that okay, I'm doing something right.
Oh, and then again, these are things you'll continue to refine, and at the end of the day, you will go back a changed person. I mean, you're better in some level, but more well-rounded, and all of these things that you've shared, I think, just underscore how important cultural knowledge is, and it's an ongoing thing. It doesn't end. Also, that's the other thing about culture. It's not fixed. Our own cultures, and you know, the three of us who reflect, you know, different cultural traditions from our own countries, I think speak to that. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up here, and as we're getting out of time, and gosh, it's been a great pleasure to learn more about you, what you're doing here, and I commend you for, you know, what you've done to reach out and to reach for, you know, your own goals. We're going to close on this. I'm Carlos Juarez, and this is Global Connections, part of the ThinkTech series. We've been talking here with Ferid M-Rad, who comes to us from Austria, and Raumanu Parmilvan from Fiji. And I want to thank all of you for joining us here, for being here. Got to thank many who helped us bring together this program: Ian Montana, our communications director, Chrissy Goffigan, and of course Jay Fidel, who helps put all of this together. And just thank you, our listeners, for listening and joining us. ThinkTech will be back with the next shows very shortly, and just make sure you are aware of where you can connect to get all the information: thinktechhawaii.com. And remember, we broadcast live every day, or you can find podcasts that are saved or YouTube files. Let me close on that, and we'll be back with the next edition of Global Connections. Thank you.